Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the West Coast Offensive. I am your host, Kyle Dewhurst, joined by our forever guest, Drew Ager. Week 2 of the NFL has passed, and a lot of good games. Sunday night, Ravens, Chiefs was good. Raiders, Pittsburgh was good as well, I'll say. My Dolphins, not my Dolphins. I don't know why I said my Dolphins, but Dolphins got blown out. That was fun. Excited for next week. Raiders face them. I'm expecting to go 3-0 for the Raiders, but that is in the future. Drew, this week, Thursday night, we didn't even talk about Thursday night real quick. Giants and Washington. That was actually a good game. Football team wins 29-30 on Thursday night. It was sloppy, but I am into Taylor Heineke. I don't think he's going to be like long-term the answer at a quarterback position. But for a guy who last season was taking college classes at the beginning of the NFL season to now get his first win on Thursday night, not saying he's going to be successful, but cool story for the guy. And overall, I mean, hey, it wasn't the worst Thursday night football game for two teams coming out of the NFC East, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on like what you mean by like a good football game. Like as you said, it was incredibly sloppy, right? Like it was not good football. It was an entertaining game. It was a competitive game. I enjoyed watching the game. I wouldn't consider it to be necessarily a good football game with those two teams going. I will, absolutely say Taylor Heineke has played tremendously better than what I thought he would be able to play. Just in terms of, what we've seen from a lot of backups. It's also been something with him. I mean, we saw what that Buccaneers defense did to every other team in the playoffs last year. Heineke actually played relatively well. There's a mobility to his game. He's not, Lamar Jackson, but he has more escapability than what Ryan Fitzpatrick has. I think most importantly, the team buys into him. They really like what they have. They made the playoffs last year with Alex Smith playing on one leg and a couple of Dwayne Haskins starts, right? Like this team, especially when you look at like a team like at the Cowboys, the Washington's not quarterback dependent. They have great skill pieces and they have a tremendous defense, specifically that front seven. My feelings about them from the beginning of the season until now haven't changed drastically from Ryan Fitzpatrick to a Heineke. I thought there would be a bigger shift. I thought as soon as Fitzpatrick went down, my first instinct is go ahead and sign Cam Newton. At least he's familiar with Ron Rivera. It looks okay. It's not a good division, although we can also say the Eagles are playing like a whole lot better than what I think anybody in the world anticipated. I mean, except for maybe the people inside Philadelphia. So, but I still have reservations about Daniel Jones, and that was the bigger storyline to me that came out. The more I see of him, I think he's a really mediocre starter. I think he's probably, that like Andy Dalton role. They have skill people on that Giants offense. Granted, the offensive line's terrible, but I think this is the year that they just see exactly what they have in Daniel Jones and then inevitably move off from him either next year or the year after.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think this is Daniel Jones' last year in New York unless he keeps going. I mean, he had a couple really good runs, but other than that, it's like what you got with him, and so far he has not shown anything more. So totally agree with that there. Looking at, let's go to Raiders Steelers. You watched what a game for the Raiders, right? It was pretty sloppy at first, but Raiders are 2-0. Drew, I want to hear what you thought of the game other than me just talk about the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, the offense looks great. Derek Carr looks great. In the last 6 quarters, they've been phenomenal, right? I think that they were significantly better just as far as using the totality of that offense in week 2 than in week 1, with the exception of the running game. But the fact that they were still able to win without Josh Jacobs and really without the ability to run the ball effectively at all during that game, I think says a lot about Derek Carr and that offense. Defense obviously looks a whole lot better too. Max Crosby, whether it was just the alcohol or having somebody on the other side of that line, like he's not just a good player anymore. Like he's like a top pass rusher right now. So I'm curious to see how that continues. My biggest question though with the Raiders though is that like, and this I think goes to your point about the Ravens when you say like it doesn't matter what they do in the regular season. Let's wait until we get until the playoffs. I'm used to the Raiders starting 2-0, right? Like I'm used to the Raiders winning games in September. What are they going to do in December, right? That's the biggest question to me is that they've gotten off to what 6-3 records in the past 2 seasons. So like they've started off well. This shouldn't be surprising anybody, but how is that going to continue as teams grow, rookies get experience, injuries occur? How is that going to translate later into the season? Great game. Beating Pittsburgh in that fashion, I do think says a lot about that team. Raiders look better to me than what they did last year. I think Pittsburgh is not going to be as good as they were last year. I had them really on that wild card bubble. I'm not sure if they get in. But yeah, Raiders do look really, really good. The whole AFC West really looks pretty good to start off the season off.
Yeah, they do look pretty good to start. Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr, 817 yards overall the past 2 games. He's leading the NFL by over 100 yards. Of course, they had an overtime game where he did have to throw the ball. And yeah, I think what you said, like they had no running game, didn't matter. They still had Kenyon Drake out, go for those passes, run a couple. Even Peyton Barber, out of nowhere, signing, he's rushing for a couple first downs at the end of the game too. They couldn't run the ball at all, and it was at the end of the game. So I like how you said it is the totality of the offense and the whole team. It's every team made plays. The kicking game was on point. I got Daniel Carlson in my kicking league. He scored 14 points on my fantasy team. Surprised, but I loved every second of it. But, the whole team up and down contributed to that game. And I do agree, Max Crosby having someone else there can actually go do something, right? Yannick Ngakoue had a leg injury, hamstring, nothing serious. He still played, but he definitely was not really rushing the quarterback. He was almost there as a decoy in my mind. I really think he was on the field to be that presence and leader out there too, but like he didn't do much, and it still freed up Crosby and other players to do that. And again, Max Crosby was second place right behind the guy from San Fran, pass rusher, Bosa. Yeah, in defensive rookie of the year. He was right there, and I thought he got beat out. Stats wise, Max Crosby was better that rookie year, but Nick Bosa won games for the Niners, which I think edges him out at the end of the day. Yeah, look it up. But this guy is good, and it was last season where they had no other option. He got double teamed and he got slowed down, and now that he has other options, you got Solomon Thomas also has a sack on the game and was a wreck in the middle of that line for the Raiders. So I think that depth is really good, and again, yeah, it does go back down to how does it continue going on? You need that consistency. And once teams actually get film on this defense, will they get figured out? Because this is a new defense. No one knew what the Raiders defense was going to look like. You could surmise based on Bradley's older defenses, but that is something to, and that is the thing with the Raiders. I'm happy. I think we can go 3-0, to start the season. And this is the hardest part of the first part, right? Up until the bye week, these 2 back-to-back AFC North teams was the toughest part of this schedule for the Raiders at the beginning until the bye. So this is huge for them. But again, yeah, it's that consistency. Great. I'm happy, but we'll see what happens with it. You got that stats?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, Max Crosby had 1 more sack, but Nick Bosa had more tackles. He had more assists, and he had an interception. It's not showing fumbles right here. So, I mean, it's depending on how you want to look at that. Similar, absolutely, but I think Nick Bosa is just better. I mean, from the eye test, I think Nick Bosa, and I hate Nick Bosa, but I definitely think that he deserved to be Rookie of the Year, defensive.
Yeah, that's not a knock at all against Nick Bosa. That's just the Raider fan being like, Max earned it more, but he was right there in that conversation too. So, yeah.
But I think that's why I don't trust the Raiders going long term, is because it's great that you drafted Max Crosby and you got him in the 4th round. That's killer. But you're so bad at drafting so many other positions. The amount of 3rd round picks, I think it's 3 3rd round picks total now that they've had that haven't suited up for them.
Yeah, Bowden Jr., Tanner Muse, and there's one other guy.
Those are high picks, to just never even play, right? And there's you're going to whiff on some guys But to have a whiff that badly to where you're cutting somebody like before the season starts, like that's a major whiff, especially when you consider like you could have traded that 3rd round pick and legitimately got a really good player. Randy Moss was acquired for a 4th round pick. I mean, just like
yeah, especially like Mike Mayock has said before, like and Gruden has said, like, yeah, no, our 3rd round picks are the hidden gems, right? Like they had 3 or 4 3rd round picks across 2 drafts, 3 drafts, something like that. They've had a lot of 3rd round picks, but again, most of them are gone. Most of them, I mean, Lynn Bowden Jr. didn't even play a snap. They traded him in the offseason, the year he got drafted to Miami. He didn't do anything. Got on the practice field and they're like, no. And I do appreciate that though, because it is like this locker room is so connected, and they are very much playing for each other right now, and that's huge. And I think that really does go in part of it, but that's something that on the outside looking in, you really can't see, and you really can't comment on much. So maybe these guys just weren't those guys, but the perception is, yeah, like these guys are not, you draft them and you trade them away. You let them go. They get signed on other teams' practice squads. So what does that do for you? So it is something that long-term we'll see how that goes, but I don't know. We'll see. I want to talk about Saints and Panthers, because Panthers are off to a 2-0 start. And this was a team that we saw with Sam Darnold. We were excited to see Sam Darnold outside of New York. And so far, I watched highlights of it for both week 1 and week 2, and he looks good. Obviously not elite level quarterback at all, but this Panthers team could be one to mess with. I mean, this is a Saints team that blew out Green Bay, which I definitely am now leaning towards Green Bay just being off since Rodgers was back in for the first time in a long time.
But you said last year too.
So, yeah, last year.
Yeah.
So that loss is what it is. But then the Saints, I mean, they got blown out by the Panthers, 26-7. Winston looked like the Winston before LASIK surgery. I mean, I like what I'm seeing out of Sam Darnold, and I think this Panthers offense looks better with him. He can actually throw the ball. He has time. Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore on the receiving end for the Panthers. Solid receivers. Sam Darnold obviously trusts him. Robbie Anderson was the guy I wanted the Raiders to go after at one point because I like his ability to play the ball, right? Drew, what do you see out of this Panthers offense? And Sam Darnold, because I know you've been super critical of New York quarterbacks for good reason. But what do you see out of Sam Darnold?
Yeah, this is the first time that Sam Darnold has had an adequate offensive line. The first time that he's had legitimate receivers with an S on it. Like, I understand that you had Robbie Anderson for 2 years with the Jets. Like, so what, right? I mean, the fact that you have a Christian McCaffrey type, like he has so much skill around him. There was a reason this guy was the 2nd overall pick, right? There's a reason almost universally he was projected to be the 1st overall pick ahead of Baker Mayfield, and the Browns decided to do what the Browns do. I love what I'm seeing right now. Matt LaRue is a great offensive mind. I really liked how the Panthers rebuilt themselves last year. I think it was what we saw with Brian Flores with Miami that first year. Like they didn't win a ton of games, but they were competitive. They were close. They were playing hard. The defense for the Panthers is what has impressed me the most so far. The Panthers offense is doing reasonably what I expected the Panthers offense to be able to do. I've always liked Sam Darnold. I just don't like the New York Jets. It's the same issue where I think like Zach Wilson might have, this insanely high ceiling according to Dan Orlovsky. He's still playing for the New York Jets, and he had 4 picks yesterday or on Sunday, right? Like if you can put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig, right? So I just and that's what like I said before, like especially with a quarterbacks, it matters where they land. Sam Darnold went to a great spot for him. That division, especially when I think you have a mediocre Falcons team that I don't really think has a great sense of identity. I do think Arthur Smith's a good offensive mind, but like that team is just. I feel like they're stagnant, and between them, the follies that we've seen with the Saints so far, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Carolina was able to, run off a couple wins here. I also do want to say I think we're a little bit prisoner of the moment right now. I think when you do beat a team like Green Bay, who was in the NFC Championship game last year, 38-3, and then try to get back up for week 2, I'm sure Sean Payton is going to have them working really hard at practice this next week. But it's great to see the Panthers. It's great to see Sam Darnold exceeding here, because the league is better when we have good quarterback play, and right now we have a ton of good quarterback play, and even if it's not great, young quarterbacks that I enjoy watching.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, there's a lot of young quarterbacks, and I was watching the we're not going to talk much about the Monday Night Football game because it was whatever. Devontae Adams did not do enough for me. He just needed like a step more, just one more step of yardage, and I would have won my fantasy football game. But that's okay. They still won.
Just say though about Monday night, like that's what I expect the Lions to be though. Where it's like you come out, you have a lot of energy and passion, and then you have 10 penalties, right?
Yeah.
Like
they were leading at halftime, and they didn't score another point. Yeah.
And just turning the ball over like crazy. That sloppiness is what I expect out of Dan Campbell.
I will say though, it's not surprising that Goff had those fumble issues with the ball with weather. It was raining, it was pouring. I don't think this guy is a cold weather game guy, and I think that's something we talked about when the trade first happened, when we brought Jared on. That was what I was like, yeah, I mean, Goff could find success, but it is Detroit, and like he has to play outside in those games. Not outside in Detroit, but he has to go to Green Bay and to Chicago twice, at least once. And I mean, we saw in Green Bay, it was rainy and he had a really sloppy game in the second half. So we'll see when they played, or I forget when they played Chicago, but I think that's something for him. He needs to improve on that if he wants to find success in Detroit, because those are games that they honestly could have won. They really could have. They changed their defense up at halftime, and it just looked different in Green Bay with behind Aaron Jones 4 touchdowns. What can you do there, right? Sunday night, let's go back to Sunday night. I know I jumped the gun on Monday. Was gonna say a story, but I forgot. Sunday night we had the Ravens and the Chiefs. Lamar Jackson finally got that monkey off his shoulder and defeated Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes, the king has fallen. No more perfection in September. First time he's thrown an interception in September for the first time in his whole career. And I saw this on Twitter, and I do want to say this. That was a bad pass, right? No one's talking about this, but that interception, they were all talking about the stat and how amazing it was that he hasn't thrown an interception in September, but he was being tackled, and he finally got caught, where he makes those crazy throws and you don't know how he makes them. Another quarterback tries to make a throw like that, and it would be easily intercepted. This is the first time it's happened in September, and yeah, bad throw on Patrick Mahomes, but a fantastic game. 36-35 comes down to Lamar Jackson telling Harbaugh asked him, but telling Harbaugh, yes, I want to go for it on 4th down. Ultimately, he secures the win with quarterback sneak up the middle for that first down to seal the win. So, Drew, this game, what did you see in it between the Chiefs and the Ravens?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely surprised to see the game as close as it was. I mean, obviously, you see some of the big differences that a crowd makes. We had Kansas City and Baltimore last year, and I mean, Baltimore rolled them on a Monday night game. I think this was a really awesome opportunity for Lamar Jackson to step up. I still, the thing though is that like I still struggle with, if you're down by 7 under 2 minutes, as much as I love Lamar Jackson, I probably don't want him being that guy. And I guess I should say, if you have 2 minutes and like two timeouts, sure, I want him. If you have 45 seconds, he's probably not that guy. Where like I think Brady or Mahomes or a lot of those people would still be able to like orchestrate their way down. Ravens looked, a whole lot better overall. Defense looked better. Offensive line looked better. I just think like the Chiefs are so unbelievably talented. And I think what the Ravens showed is that this is how you're gonna beat the Chiefs. Like, you're not going to beat them by playing ball control. You can try what Cleveland does. it doesn't work. You have to be able to put up points. You have to be able to win in a shootout. And at the end of the game, you have to be able to go for the kill, right? Like that.
Yeah.
It was a really gutsy call. It's not a call that I probably would have been able to make. So credit to John Harbaugh and to Lamar Jackson specifically, but those are the plays I think you have to do if you want to beat Kansas City.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Because if they don't go for it, they punt it back, and even though there was a limited time, just over a minute, that's too much time. Mahomes has scored in 20 seconds. Like it's just too much time for that Kansas City offense. So I loved it immediately on that. They didn't get that first down. I was like, they need to go for it. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure Kansas City is going to win. They just need a field goal too. So that's not that hard. But Lamar Jackson had 2 interceptions and they still overcame it. So that's the thing too. You got to be almost perfect against the Chiefs. And if you're not, you also got to make the Chiefs mess up, and they did. They had a couple fumbles, they had an interception, and that's huge for opposing defenses to do to the Chiefs. And I think that's something that when you do that, you got to capitalize it, and that's something that the Ravens did last night, for sure. And Jackson was on another level, honestly. Or not last night, a couple days. But he, that jump pass to Hollywood Brown, who was wide open in the middle of the field. Crazy throw, he had to make that, and then his little cartwheel into the end zone. Hey, you know what? I'm still waiting to see how the Ravens do the whole season, but this was something I was worried about with the Ravens, and to why I think the Ravens weren't going to be that good this year, or we're going to regress slightly, was because of Jackson's play. But so far, he elevated it, and he took down that proverbial monkey on the back of taking down Patrick Mahomes finally. It was not in the playoffs, and it's only week 2, so it is what it is. I don't think that means as much as it does in the playoff scenario, but it is something, and especially in the way he did it and winning the game, running for it, saying he wants to go for that play. I think that's huge for the Ravens going forward. Drew, there are only a couple 2-0 teams right now. I'm going to tell you them, and I want you to tell me if they're for real or not. Are these teams that are, they're for real or they're not? So let's start with the Buccaneers. They're 2-0, defeated the Falcons this week. They're for real, right?
Yeah. They're bringing back 22 starters. Like they're so good, and they're better than what they were last year in the regular season, just due to health alone and a full off season and practice time. Like, yeah, they're ready to go.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I started with them. Let's go to the West now. NFC West, we have the 49ers. NFC, I guess it M. NFC West, we have the 49ers 2-0. Barely escaped Detroit. And then, of course, last night took down I know the team. I see the logo in my head, but I can't think of who they played.
Vikings? No, it was somebody else.
No, I literally see the logo in my head. It's that one team. This is Eagles. Yep. I wanted to say Atlanta. Anyways, they played the Eagles, escaped with 17-11 win. What's going are they for real at 2-0?
Yeah, I think that if we recall back, this was a team that was a Jimmy Garoppolo completion to Emmanuel Sanders short of winning a Super Bowl a year ago, or I guess 2 years ago. And then last year they had the worst injury luck of any team in NFL history, right? Like, I think that they're loaded. Their defensive line is great. You've lost a couple pieces over the years to Forrest Buckner, Solomon Thomas, but like you have so much talent on that defense, even in regards to the injuries that you've suffered this year. That offense is amazing. Although, how do they? I'm just thinking, like, they've already lost Jason Verrett and Raheem Mostert this year. Like, I don't get why their injury bugs are so bad. I think that the 49ers are a great team. I think that the NFC West is probably the best division in football. I think the NFC and the AFC West are the best two divisions in football. When the weakest team is the Broncos, who are not bad right now, like I think that says a lot. But yeah, I totally buy into the 49ers as being, a Super Bowl contender this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think, having a close game against Detroit, and then having kind of a close game against the Eagles here, last year, that's kind of surprising, right? Going off what last year was going into this season, that's kind of surprising that they almost lost or that they were closer games than you would have think. But those are both road games. They won 2-0 on the road to start the season. That's huge. So yeah, I do think that once we get, especially when they get home, and I think this is going to help them ultimately playing these two teams, especially that game in Detroit. Like they did have to have some fortitude there to hold on to that win, and I do think those matter, especially against, even though it's, you know, Detroit and Philadelphia. Not saying much about the teams, but it helps the team overall. So I do think, yeah, this is a for real team. Let's go Rams 2-0, sticking in the NFC West. For real.
I love the Rams. I loved the addition of Matt Stafford. I think that their offense is finally able to do everything that they want it to be able to do. And as long as the Rams can stay healthy, because they have so much money and cap space in, they are the most top heavy team in the NFL. When you look at guys like, I mean, they have the best defensive linemen in the NFL. They're the best defensive back in the NFL. I mean, that one you can maybe argue, but Aaron Donald's probably the best player in the NFL, right?
Yeah,
so like
he could do crazy things.
The fact that you have all of that, I think getting Todd Gurley like out of there and being able to like rebuild some of those things on the offensive line, like, yeah, I'd love the Rams.
Yeah, I agree. I would question Stafford going over there, but he clearly has shown, and I'm happy for him, because this is a guy who was in Detroit his whole career and had some amazing games, amazing plays, but he was in Detroit. So I'm pulling for him here. The offense looks good. You have sloppy against Indy, but they still got the win, right? And that's all that matters. It's week 2, so work through those things. Let's keep it in the NFC West. We got the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray making a case for MVP here. He's moving up a couple of the MVP rankings right now. Drew, is Arizona for real?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are. I think if you put them in the NFC South, if you put them in the AFC South, I think a lot of people would have the Cardinals winning that division. I think that they are unlucky by just the notion that they have to compete with, 3 other really, really good teams in their division. Kyler Murray looks like the truth. That offense continues to get better. DeAndre Hopkins, and they were able to, I mean, they stole him. The Cardinals top to bottom look really good right now. And the way that they've rebuilt that defense, they have a lot of playmakers there. I was so glad that JJ Watt signed there as well. Yeah, it's weird to say if they're for real, because like if like you ask me, are they going to make the playoffs? I would probably say no, but I think that they're really, really, really good. It's just that it's those division games that I think like they're all going to end up beating each other up. But it would not surprise me in the slightest to have 2 of the wild card teams come out of the NFC West.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Cardinals, I really like them, and I do think they're for real, but they had a tough game against Minnesota. They won because Minnesota missed a field goal, right? So they were given this win almost, you could say. Not that they performed bad at all. They performed well, and Kyler, again, that offense is great, and the defense can hold its own when it needs to. But I do feel like this is a team I think could easily be 4th place in that division, and it's nothing against them, It's just a stacked division. So like you said, it's kind of bad luck that you're in this type of division. It is, because I could see them being 4th place, and I think that the odds are slightly angled towards them to be in last place in the division. But again, it's nothing against them. It's just the nature of that division. I think it's yeah, I'm excited to watch those games. They're going to beat each other up. I love the type of arms race that the NFC West kind of had within itself, of just getting as much pieces as you can, because you have the people you want to win with right now, but you need to stack up, and they're just competing with each other right now. Exciting division to watch. So let's go to We talked a little bit about the Panthers. 2-0. Is this a team that I think you kind of hinted at it earlier? Are they for real at 2-0?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're going to be, 13-4. I think they could absolutely be challenging for a playoff berth. I think they could be challenging for a division lead. I definitely am, being prisoner of the moment right now. And so I think it's hard to say this, after just 2 weeks with what we've seen so far. But I really like everything that Carolina's done the past 2 seasons. And when I look at that team, like I think I for sure like them better than Atlanta. I think that I probably overall like the Saints more, even though the Saints just lost to them. But yeah, I think that they're real in the sense that I think they will absolutely be competing for a division crown, or at the very least a wild card spot this year.
For sure, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I think Bucks will run with the division, but depending on what the Saints do, either Green Bay was the truth or Green Bay was a fluke, right? That first game. So we'll see what Winston we get next week and what team we get, but I agree with that. Now let's end it with our other 2 teams who are from the AFC West and who, honestly, if you put money on it, I bet you would win a lot of money if you said that the Broncos and the Raiders would be 2-0, the only 2-0 team in the division. Let's start with the Raiders because we kind of already talked about them a lot. Are they for real? I'll say yes because they have a defense finally, and that's all I want is an average defense, and they're above average right now. Drew, are the Raiders for real?
Yeah, I'm gonna say what I said before. Like, I'm not gonna know until December, right? Like, it doesn't matter what they do now. They've started 6-3 the past 2 seasons, so 2-0 is not out of the question or the realm of possibilities for them to do. I don't know specifically if they've started 2-0 the past 2 seasons, but 6-3 is a very good record to start. You are in a great position to win your division at 6-3. My biggest questions about the Raiders aren't about the Raiders. It's and so I guess goes back to what I said about the Cardinals, right? It's you have a Chiefs team that is not going to be 1-1 this entire season. You have a Chargers team that has. Chargers are always going to have issues just due to the ownership. I'm very aware of that. I don't think the Chargers are going to make the playoffs. But I do think that you have Justin Herbert, who, as much as I like Derek Carr, I think Derek Carr is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. Pro Bowler. He's great. Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, I think, are at a different level, right? So I think that's interesting. I definitely think that the Raiders will be competing for a wild card spot. And maybe if I could flip flop, take the Chiefs out and put, the Packers in or something, maybe I think they could legitimately compete. I think it's just so hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes now that I think they will be competing for a wild card spot, but that's been what they've have been the past 2 years. And so each of the past 2 seasons, they've added one more win, right? So maybe they add one more win and are 10-7. Is that going to be enough to make it into the playoffs? Probably not, right? I do think that the defense has looked a whole lot better, but I think it's just John Gruden has proven that he can win games in September. So they're the one that I have a big question mark about. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. So last team is the Broncos are 2-0. Drew, I have thoughts, but I'll let you start. Broncos 2-0. Are they for real?
Yeah, I think the defense is for real, but I think we've said that the past few seasons. I think Bridgewater, I like him a lot, but he's a bridge quarterback, right? He's just limited. And although before Jerry Jeudy got hurt, you can make the argument that the Broncos had, especially including Noah Fant, they had one of the best receiving corps in the entire NFL. Yeah. Not necessarily special running backs, but they had good skill positions, good enough offensive line. Bridgewater with that defense and those skill pieces can definitely win you a lot of games. I just don't think it's going to win you more than that, especially in a division as competitive as the AFC West. So I like the Broncos. I definitely like going with Bridgewater over Drew Lock, if for nothing else, to just shut up Broncos fans. Yep. But beyond that, I think you're stuck in this mode. And I think especially when you look at the AFC, right? You have Josh Allen, you have Lamar Jackson, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Justin Herbert, you have Derek Carr. If you don't have an elite quarterback, you need to be elite at every other spot on your team, like the Browns are, if you're going to compete, right? And I think that's why I still don't like the Browns as much as those other teams.
Yeah.
I think they have a phenomenal roster, but Baker's not a top 5 quarterback in the AFC.
No.
I think that's going to come back to bite them.
Yeah. Broncos are not for real. Okay, that's my opinion. They beat the Giants in week 1. They beat the Jaguars in week 2, and then they have the Jets next week. They're going 3-0, right? And this is a team that the team was signaling that Drew Lock was their starter. The fan base thinks Drew Lock is phenomenal. Fan base is whatever. Obviously he's not, and they go with Teddy Bridgewater, who is a good guy, a good quarterback, who unfortunately his career was sidelined by injuries, right? He was in Minnesota, had a horrific injury, and he's been a good player. He has recovered, but his career has just not been that solid going for. It's been all over the place. So, yeah, cool. You got Bridgewater, but again, you don't have a quarterback, and I'm happy for you. You're 2-0, and you're gonna be 3-0 most likely against the Jets. Congrats. But this is a team that they haven't had a challenge yet, so I'm still waiting to see this offense do something. So that's why I'm gonna say they're not for real until they prove it, because cool, you proved it against the Giants, Jaguars, and most likely the Jets next. Congrats. You have a hell of an easy schedule to start off the year, in my opinion. So We'll see. Then they got the Ravens after that. Ravens, Steelers, Raiders, Browns. You know, they can easily all of a sudden be 4-3 after winning 3-0. So this is a team that I think is going to be the bottom of the AFC, and it's really because of their quarterback play. Not AFC,
bottom of the
AFC
West.
Okay. AFC West.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They'll be in middle probably of the AFC, but it's just their quarterback play is not on par, and the defense, yeah, it's good, but if your defense is always on the field because the other team also has, I mean, the other teams in the division have defenses too. So so I think Broncos fans need to calm down. They are clearly not as good as what their record says right now, and that's a hard fact for me.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that's week 2. Looking at week 3 before we go, if I can get to the file I want to go. Drew, are there any games you're looking forward to next week? I think this week was a good week of football. A lot of fun games, but looking at next week, we got Sunday night football, Green Bay at San Francisco. San Francisco's at home. Then that could be a fun game to watch. Philadelphia and Dallas on Monday night. That should be fun. Actually, the more I think about the Eagles now and actually being a little better, that actually should be an entertaining game to watch. Dallas is all over the place. They've been really good, and then they make really bad mistakes.
But I think, Dallas, I enjoy watching though, because I'm fascinated by them in the way that I think people watch, like Real Housewives of New Jersey and stuff. Like, I don't watch it going into it like I'm going to watch some great football right now. But you do have some amazing receivers. I do like watching Dak work with that offense and with their defense. I know it's going to be a high scoring game, right? So it's fascinating watching them play. And to the Eagles' credit, they were a joke last year. I thought that they reached on Jalen Hurts when they took him. To be fair, a lot of analysts did. It's not like I'm watching tape on Hurts and I'm saying he sucks. The people that I respect most are saying I think he was taken too high. He's been better than I would have expected so far in his NFL career. So we'll see if that continues. I will say a lot of the rookie coaches. A lot of the rookie coaches won week 1, right? Or and so we'll see what that looks like going forward. But between Brandon Staley, between Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni here, I thought this was like the worst coaching class to be hired in NFL history. And so watching these teams lose is a little bit of a validation. A lot of people like Romo and Jim Nantz were praising Brandon Staley in the hire and how he's going to be this like great defensive mind. Like he was a defensive coordinator for 1 season. Like, can we hold back on this a little bit?
Yeah. But hey, he was next to, wasn't it McVay?
Yeah.
He's a McVay prodigy. So, that instantly means you're going to be a head coach.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's really not a lot of marquee games coming up next week, in my opinion. Chiefs and Chargers division game, so that's going to be exciting to see the outcome of that. They both are 1-1, so an important game early in the season for them. But other than that, looking at the Sunday night game between Green Bay and San Fran to see if Green Bay is still real and if the Niners are real, having those two closer games between the Eagles and the things. But that is next week. Drew, you got anything else?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't looked at the schedule for next week.
Oh yeah, no, I just meant in general.
I'm super curious to see what the Packers end up doing. I know that they got blown out. I tended to lean more with Aaron Rodgers after that week 1 loss, where it's like, it's one game. And you have a 17-game schedule, right? Like, it's one game, especially in the sense that you had 12 snaps, I think, in the first half. Just because of how that game, they completely took Aaron Jones out of the game before the Packers offense could even get going, right? And I think what we saw, especially last night, like, they need Aaron Jones to do everything that they want to do, especially with an offensive line that lost Corey Linsley in the offseason, that David Bakhtiari, who's probably the best left tackle in football, is still hurt, right? So you do have some of these other options, and I think you saw some issues with the offensive line play last night, although Rodgers obviously holds on to the ball way too long. So there's different things you can say about that. A lot of the sacks Aaron Rodgers takes are on him, and he has to acknowledge that. But I'm not saying that they're going to be 13-3, but I don't think that they're going to be a bad team this year. And I think in a division where I think you have a really average Bears and Vikings team and a really bad Lions team, I'm still expecting the Packers to pull this off. And I guess part of this is like, look, Matt LaFleur, 26-6 so far, as in I guess I should, so 27-7 now, right? That roster is so good. I understand Rodgers had the crazy offseason, but I think now that he's here and they got their feet wet, I'm still expecting the Packers to be in first place. I'm not expecting Aaron Rodgers to be MVP, but I'm still expecting him to be a Pro Bowl quarterback this year. And if that doesn't happen, like, I'll definitely, eat crow. But like, I've seen the Packers. I know I've seen them suck for 5 games, and then Aaron Rodgers says relax, and everybody in Milwaukee is freaking the hell out about how bad the Packers are, and then they run the table and make the playoffs, right? Like, so with like Rodgers and Brady and those guys, I'm kind of done doubting them until they just retire, right? Or until I see something that's going to make me ultimately change my mind about them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, week 1 it looked like the team was like, we're not with you, buddy. And then now, okay, clearly they're with him, and whatever, it's over, right? It's Rodgers. He's the same Rodgers we've known, and it probably will be that way until he retires this offseason to go host Jeopardy. Probably not. Anyways, that's been another episode of the West Coast Offensive. We've been your host, Kyle, and our forever guest, Drew Ager. We'll be back at some point next week with another one. Enjoy the games. Stay safe. Get vaxxed.